Coming up on Arirang News. For the first time, South Korea's health ministry has reported several doctors related to the mass walkout to the police for violating medical law. The government says it's done the reviewing to hold those legally responsible who did not return to work by the set deadline, which is Thursday. South Korea's defense chief says North Korea is operating some of its munitions factories at full capacity. The regime has apparently been shipping munitions to Russia in exchange for food and other essentials. Having submitted its application to join NATO shortly after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Sweden clears the final hurdle to become the 32nd member of the alliance. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with the tug of war between the South Korean government and the doctors against the medical school quota expansion. The government has taken legal action for the first time since the start of the doctors' collective action. It also once again asked the trainee doctors who have left their posts to return by the Thursday deadline. While President Yoon says medical reform is not negotiable. Our Shin-young leads us off.
The Ministry of Health and Welfare on Tuesday filed a complaint against 5 doctors protesting the government's expansion of the medical student admission quota. Affiliated with the Korean Medical Association, these doctors are charged with violating local medical laws and obstructing justice. This marks the first legal action taken by the government since the start of a mass walkout by trainee doctors about a week ago. The same day, the government announced that it has completed all legal reviews for judicial proceedings against trainee doctors who do not return to their posts by Thursday. This comes a day after the government issued the return-to-work deadline of February 29 for trainee doctors who have staged walkouts from hospitals to protest an increase in the medical school admissions quota.
Certain regulations can be implemented to safeguard the public interest and maintain social order. We have concluded the legal review, confirming that the measures align with the current medical system.
To respond quickly, especially in situations threatening the lives of patients, an immediate response team was established within the Health Ministry on Tuesday. The ministry announced a plan to speed up the enactment of the Special Act on Handling of Medical Accidents. It aims to exempt doctors from liability or criminal punishment in the event of a medical accident, thereby reducing the legal liabilities that doctors would otherwise bear in such cases. Meanwhile, during a meeting on cooperation between central and local governments also on Tuesday, President Yoon Suk-yeol stated that medical reform should not be subject to negotiation.
의료는 복지의 핵심입니다. 어린이와 노인, 장애인을 비롯한 의료 약자를 보호하는 것은 정부의 핵심 국정기조인 약자 복지와도 직결되어 있습니다. 그래서 이는 협상이나 타협의 대상이 될 수 없고 대소도 안 됩니다.
President Yoon emphasized the importance of reforming the stagnant medical school enrollment to ensure essential medical services and prepare for increasing demand due to rapid aging. He also urged cooperation between central and local governments to prevent gaps in patient care. The Korean Medical Association criticized the government, saying that suspending licenses and taking legal action against residents would further worsen the situation and eliminate any chance of their return to hospitals. Shin-young, Arirang News.
Staying with the president, to boost the nation's ever-low birth rate, President Yoon is calling for all of Korean society to support a nationwide childcare initiative that kicks off in schools next month. Woo Soo-young has the details.
It's said that it takes a village to raise a child, but in South Korea, there will be a centralized government system to reduce the burden of childcare and education. That's according to President Yoon Suk-yeol on Tuesday, as announced at a meeting of leaders of the nation's 17 local governments and their respective educational authorities. Ahead of the new school year, which begins in March, the president addressed the pilot launch of his administration's childcare program for elementary schools nationwide. meaning continual care, the so-called newborn program will offer parents and guardians 2 hours of free extracurricular sessions for their children before and after school during hours that overlap with their commute and work. This comes as South Korea seeks to resolve its chronic demographic crisis, the lowest birth rate in the world, averaging 0.78 births per woman, with more and more adults feeling unable to afford or have the time to raise children in a fiercely competitive society.
우리 사회에서 학교만큼 안전하고 아이를 믿고 맡길 수 있는 곳이 없습니다. 학부모는 돌봄 걱정 없이 마음껏 경제 사회 활동을 하고 아이들은 안전하게 돌봄을 받으며 건강하게 성장을 하기 위해서 학교가 늘봄 학교의 중심이 돼야 합니다.
The program will kick off at 2,700 schools for first graders in the first half of this year, offering extracurricular classes based on popular requests such as culture, sports, arts, digital technology, and self-development. From the second semester, the program will expand to 6,000 schools and cover second grade students from next year, working up to sixth graders by 2026. Yoon emphasised that the burden of childcare and education should shift away from parents to the public sector, announcing that the central government will establish a headquarters for the newborn program as an all-out support system. According to a senior presidential aide, current Deputy Prime Minister and Education Minister Lee Joo-ho, known for his pioneering policies and academic work on education and innovation, is expected to lead the pan-government body. The programme will launch a year earlier than planned, with 700 more schools taking part in the first semester due to high demand. Lee has pledged administrative support as well as a feedback system to heed teachers' voices. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Moving our focus to Pyongyang, South Korea's defense chief says North Korea has reportedly sent close to 7,000 containers of weapons to Russia for use against Ukraine. The regime has apparently been receiving food and other essentials in return. Choi Min-jung reports.
North Korea is allegedly operating some of its munitions factories at full capacity to supply Russia with weapons. Speaking to reporters on Monday, South Korea's Defense Minister Shin Won-sik said that some of North Korea's arms factories are operating at 30% capacity due to the shortage of raw materials, but others are now operating at full capacity to supply weapons to Russia. The defense chief said that over the past 6 months, the regime has shipped some 6,700 containers to Russia. This works out at approximately 3 million rounds of 152mm artillery shells or 500,000 122mm artillery shells. Shin also assessed that cruise missiles launched 5 times this year alone by the North are likely to be exported to Russia as well. In exchange for weapons, North Korea is reportedly receiving food from Russia to stabilize its food prices. According to Shin, Russia has sent approximately 30% more containers to North Korea than those shipped the other way. The North is widely anticipated to have received satellite technology from Moscow as well, but the defense minister expressed skepticism, saying that it's showing no signs of functioning and is merely orbiting the Earth and not carrying out any sort of reconnaissance activities. After 2 failures last year, North Korea succeeded in launching its first spy satellite into orbit last November. Shin hinted at the possibility of North Korea launching its next reconnaissance satellite before South Korea launches another of its own from Florida in early April. Amid escalating tensions on the Korean peninsula, the defense chief reiterated that South Korea will never strike first, but will maintain a firm defense posture to counter North Korea's provocations immediately, powerfully, and to the end. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Sweden has finally been given approval to join NATO. This is seen as a major blow to Russia. Our Peunji explains what this means for geopolitics surrounding the Baltic Sea.
Sweden has cleared the final hurdle to become NATO's 32nd member after Hungary held a parliamentary vote to approve the move. NATO Secretary General officially confirmed that Sweden will become a member of the bloc now that all allies have approved.
This is an historic day. It makes NATO stronger, Sweden safer, and all of us more secure. It also demonstrates that NATO's door is open, that President Putin did not succeed in his attempt to close NATO's door.
The process has taken nearly 2 years. since Sweden applied to join the military alliance shortly after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Finland had also applied and joined NATO in April last year. In a press conference, the Swedish Prime Minister said the country is now taking a big step, and also a very natural step, by leaving 200 years of neutrality. He also noted how Russia's ambitions to limit NATO expansion had actually backfired, with 2 Nordic countries recently joining the alliance.
As far as Russia is concerned, the only thing we can safely expect is that they do not like Sweden becoming a NATO member. They didn't like Finland becoming a NATO member either.
With Sweden and Finland joining, the military alliance has now gained control over nearly the entire Baltic Sea. This is expected to pose a geopolitical blow to Russian President Vladimir Putin, as it complicates a crucial transit route for the Russian Navy. It's also an ironic twist, as Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine partly because of the alliance's growth in Eastern Europe along Russia's border. Instead of limiting the expansion of NATO, the war in Ukraine has led to a result of the alliance now gaining 2 new members, further isolating Moscow on the global stage. 배은지, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the Kremlin warns that if the European members of the NATO alliance send troops to fight in Ukraine, military conflict between Russia and NATO would be inevitable. With Russia and Ukraine entering a 3rd year of war, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said his military has only received 30% of the artillery shells promised by the EU. Lee Seung-jae has the details.
Marking the 2nd anniversary since the Russian invasion of Ukraine over the weekend, President Volodymyr Zelensky called for continued support from the West in order to push back ongoing Russian offensives. However, the Ukrainian president on Monday also said that his military had not received all of the support it was promised, including 1 million artillery shells promised by the EU. He says the Ukrainian military has only received 30% of the promised amount, with the EU noting that the production capacity of defense companies in each country has not been able to keep pace, while their own arsenals have been depleted. High Representative of the EU for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy Josep Borrell recently admitted that the supply is being delayed, adding that 524,000 rounds would be delivered by the end of March. The prolonged war seems to have taken a toll on Ukraine as it struggles to defend against the Russian offensive. According to the Associated Press, the Ukrainian military once again withdrew its troops from Arirang following an attempt to take back the Eastern Front region. The strategically important town of Arirang was recently captured by the Russian army. The military spokesman said its troops had to retreat further as they could not overcome the vastly larger number of Russians. Meanwhile, the Russian military claimed that it had destroyed an M1 Abrams tank for the first time. The main battle tank was given to Ukraine by the U.S. and deployed to the front line last fall. And a day after President Zelensky announced the number of Ukrainian troops that have died in battle, Ukraine's defense ministry says 417,000 Russian troops were killed during the 2-year war. It added that Russia lost many of its military vehicles, including 6,555 tanks, 12,478 combat armored vehicles, 25 battleships, 1 submarine, and 340 military aircraft. The latest Russian troops loss figure announced by Kyiv is higher than the number predicted by the West, where reports have put the number at around 300,000. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, one of the world's largest mobile show, Barcelona's Mobile World Congress for this year, kicked off with the focus on the future of artificial intelligence. Our Moon Hae-ryun has a glimpse.
Europe's biggest mobile and telecommunications trade show is back. The 2024 edition of the Mobile World Congress, hosted in Barcelona every year, kicked off on Monday local time. The theme for this year's 4-day event is Future First, embodying 6 different sub-themes such as 5G and AI, and stretching beyond the mobile industry to digital transformation overall. Around 2,400 firms from 200 countries around the world are expected to showcase their products and services this year to 95,000 visitors. Among the firms unveiling their latest new technology is South Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics, with its new Galaxy Ring that tracks health data in your sleep. While attendees at MWC are unable to actually try the units on display, the product is due to hit stores sometime later this year to join Samsung's lineup of wearable technology. Another reveal at MWC 2024 from domestic telecommunications firm KT is the intelligent urban air mobility traffic management system that assists in the safe operation of urban air mobility vehicles. UATM digitally replicates real-world UAM operations by integrating digital twin technology and AI, and enhances safety based on numerous data analyses and simulations. Meanwhile, China's participation in the event is also garnering attention, as its biggest companies, including Huawei and Xiaomi, did not participate at CES 2024 last month, amid growing competition in US-China technology sectors. With AI being a central theme this year, Xiaomi debuted global sales of its Xiaomi 14 smartphone, which integrates AI technology for searching photos, translation services, and taking meeting notes. Chinese technology firm Honor also launched an AI smartphone with an eye tracking feature that enables users to open apps simply by moving their eyes. And in true MWC spirit, 5 telecommunications firms from around the world, including South Korea's SK Telecom, signed a contract on the first day of the event to establish a joint venture developing AI technology. 문혜련, Arirang News.
South Korea's exports of dried seaweed, or kim in Korean, hit an all-time high in 2023 after gaining global popularity in recent years. Kim is one of the most common Korean side dishes, which is usually seasoned and roasted with sesame oil and fine salt. Our Lee Soo-jin visits one of the largest seaweed farms in Korea to find out how it's made ready for outbound shipments.
It's a cold and dry morning here on the west coast of South Korea. The perfect weather to harvest kim.
We harvested around 120 tons of kim today. The waves are rougher during the colder weather, which actually makes it taste better.
Local fishermen get up at 4 in the morning to harvest the kim that's been cultivated by eco-friendly techniques, ones that no longer use inorganic acids as cleansers after harvesting. Gigantic bags filled with the harvested kim are brought back to port and unloaded so they can be weighed.
And this seaweed right here, fresh from the sea, will soon be dried and roasted in nearby factories before being exported worldwide.
Exports of kim last year reached a record annual high of 1 trillion won, or around $790 million, making it South Korea's biggest seafood export. And which kim will be exported across the world? That will be decided in this auction that begins at 11 a.m. sharp each day, where primary kim processing plant employees enter a bidding war to secure the best quality seaweed. One bag typically contains 120 kilograms of seaweed. Kim In-tae, a director of a primary kim processing plant, purchases around 70 tons of kim each day at these auctions.
The kim that we bought today was of great quality. It's also nutritious because it's grown in mudflats, inscribed as World Natural Heritages by UNESCO.
It is washed thoroughly before being subjected to high pressure and heat in machines that mass-produce dried sheets of kim. The dried kim is then moved to secondary processing plants where it's roasted at nearly 500 degrees and sprinkled with salt. It is now ready to be fed into an auto-cutting machine before being packaged and shipped to places such as the United States, South Korea's top export destination for kim.
Exports are expected to rise 4 to 5 times year on year.
He and other owners of processing plants, as well as local fishermen, all have no doubts about the momentum behind kim exports continuing, but aren't as confident about whether supply can meet the high demand.
The government should ease regulations on the expansion of seaweed farms.
While the Oceans Ministry has announced a 5-year plan to boost exports, more active investment and policy reforms will be necessary to reach its target export value of $1 billion by 2027. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News, Seocheon.
In other news, a special exhibition is being held here in Seoul commemorating 140 years of diplomacy between Korea and Italy. Our Lee Hoon-hee reports on its significance for the two when it comes to their long friendship.
This year marks 140 years of diplomatic relations between South Korea and Italy. To celebrate, a special photo exhibition named All Roads Lead to History, Italy and Korea is being held in Seoul at the National Museum of Korean Contemporary History.
The most important aspect of this exhibition is to be able to explore the historical interactions between the two countries through photographs.
In 1884, what was then the Joseon dynasty signed a trade treaty with Italy. Later, when the Korean War broke out, Italy provided medical support for wounded soldiers and assistance to civilians for over 3 years. Photos and videos of the medical activities provided by Italian Red Cross during the Korean War in the 1950s are being unveiled for the first time in South Korea. This support during the war is seen as a solid foundation for strengthening the ties between the two countries. Although Italy wasn't a member of the United Nations, it responded to the international community's call and deployed a field hospital to South Korea.
I am deeply grateful for Italy's support, especially a Western country that knew very little about our nation during those tragic times, for coming all the way here to provide care for our people.
The exhibition also features the key interactions between the two countries in various areas, such as technology, sports, and music. The official theme song of the 1988 Seoul Olympic Games, Hand in Hand, was composed by Italian composer Giorgio Moroder. Korea's culture minister Yoon says it is still considered the greatest theme song in Olympic history.
The fact that the museum promotes the people's participation, I think that's something important because it makes people feel good about it and make part of it.
South Korea and Italy have declared 2024 to 2025 as the years of cultural exchange. Different events are scheduled throughout the year to enhance bilateral relations. This exhibition aims to serve as a milestone for what Korea's culture minister described as a vibrant cultural interaction in the coming years. The special exhibition is hosted by the National Museum of Korean History, the Italian Embassy in Korea, and also the Culture Ministry and major news agency of each country. It will run until March 31st. Yoon, Arirang News.
In sports, the Korea Football Association's national team committee has placed Hwang Sun-hong in caretaker charge of the men's national team. The announcement was made on Tuesday following a national team committee meeting. The committee explained its decision, stating that Hwang is a coach affiliated with the KFA and has recently demonstrated his achievements with his team's victory at the Hangzhou Asian Games with the under-23 squad. Hwang will lead the team during the two 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers against Thailand in March.
Mild weather continued in inland areas today without much cold. Tomorrow, skies across the country will be mostly cloudy, but there will not be any rain or snow. Wide fluctuation in daily temperatures will also be seen tomorrow. While Seoul will see a difference of 7 degrees, other regions such as Daejeon and Gyeongju will see bigger differences. During this time of the year, when we are going through seasonal changes, it's much easier to catch a cold. Please take care. For the time being, the East Coast will have high waves. Those in this area should be careful and refrain from approaching the waterfront. Tomorrow, Seoul and Gwangju will start off at 2 degrees Celsius. Daytime temperature in Seoul and Chuncheon will jump to 9 degrees. Daegu, Gyeongju, and Busan, 12 degrees Celsius. A cold snap will come around during the long weekend after the rain stops on Thursday. Especially on Saturday, morning temperature in Seoul will drop to -6 degrees. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for this newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 10 p.m. with the AI headline news. Good night.